Good evening, everybody. Let's start with our motivation. And Dharma practice requires a good deal of self-acceptance, and yet a very strong urge, a very strong feeling of urgency about practicing the path and gaining the results. So on one hand, we have to acknowledge our faults and our weaknesses quite directly. We have to accept that we have them as we are right now, and yet looking to the future, know that we can eliminate them and strive to do that, because we know this opportunity that we have to do it is quite limited. Our precious human life is not going to last forever, and we don't know what kind of rebirth we're going to have after that. So it's this interesting balance of self-acceptance and also a sense of spiritual urgency that doesn't devolve into panic or pushing, but proceeds gradually, step by step, with a joyful mind, and yet one that accepts ourselves as we are and aims to improve ourselves at the same time. And so similarly, we can look at other living beings and practice accepting them the way they are right now, with all their faults and weaknesses and so on. And at the same time know they have the potential to become fully enlightened Buddhas. And so not develop rigid concepts about them, but always remain hopeful and optimistic and willing to be of service and benefit. And so with this kind of mind, we want to approach the teachings this evening with our long-term purpose of full enlightenment, but with a big dose of acceptance that it is a gradual process that we need to keep working at continuously, but with a happy mind as well. So this thing of accepting ourselves the way we are, but at the same time aiming to improve ourselves, is, for most people, something that we've never considered before. Because, first of all, we don't usually accept ourselves. We usually are pretty judgmental about ourselves and make everything very reified, very concrete, and then think we're hopeless. Or similarly, look at other people and, oh, they have these faults, they're totally hopeless. So the whole endeavor is hopeless. So let's go stick my head in the sand, or go to the bar, or something else along that line. Yeah, but all of those are, wouldn't you say, wrong consciousnesses? Yeah? And so a much more realistic conference is to be able to identify our faults, yeah, but without reacting to them with shame, without saying they're okay and I can go on acting like that. Yeah, So we don't want the extreme of shame. We don't want the extreme of, well, it doesn't matter. You know, we want some kind of thing, well, that's where I'm at now, and I accept that. And I know that there's antidotes, and I'm going to apply them, and I'm going to change that situation for the benefit of myself and others. Okay, so this is a very important way to approach the Dharma practice. And similarly, being able to look at other sentient beings and say, yes, they have faults, but they're not hopeless. Yeah, and they too can change. Yeah, because we tend to be very extremist. Yeah, sometimes it's, well, yeah, I have a few faults, but actually they're not too bad. I've got them all under control. Yeah, or if we start to actually acknowledge our faults, it's like, woe is me, you know, this is just too much to deal with. So both of those are, you know, not really responses in accord with reality. Now, it's a thing of looking and seeing what's there, accepting it, knowing that there's counter forces, and going about practicing them. Okay? Sounds easy, huh? Okay. Can you work on that? Have you been working on that? It's really very important because, you know, to get that kind of idea, because otherwise we will tend to either repress our faults because looking at them is just too uncomfortable, and have that attitude of, well, they're just, it's all okay, and they're just thoughts anyway, but without really realizing that, going to that extreme, yeah, which is not very healthy. Yeah, repressing stuff, or going to the extreme of, you know, woe is me, I can't do any Dharma practice anyway, which is also ridiculous. Or going to the extreme of, you know, I just think I'll indulge myself because I can't do anything. Yeah. Okay. So finding some kind of way in that so we can keep going forward. I was thinking, you know, because some years ago in the Zen community, it came out that during World War II, there were some Roshis who supported the Japanese nationalistic government, and it's the takeover it was doing of East Asia, and supporting that, you know, the whole Japanese military during World War II, and there was some Roshis had contact with Nazi Germany, and some Nazis were coming over, and they really admired the Zen tradition with its discipline and its samurai thing, and the Zen Roshis, a few of them, you know, really admired the Nazis. And when this came out, there's a book called Zen at War. I mean, many of the American Zenis were just totally shocked and freaked out that the teachers that were supposedly realized, you know, supported this kind of thing. Yeah. And in my mind, of course, I can't speak about individuals. I have absolutely no insight. This is just a guess on my part. Okay? But I think if, when you meditate, you just are trying to get rid of the thoughts. You know, oh, a thought arises, I get rid of it. Another thought arises, I get rid of it. That if you just do that without examining the thoughts and being very sure and confident within yourself that those thoughts are erroneous, then in meditation, while you may succeed in releasing all those thoughts and not falling under their influence, and you may have, you know, powerful concentration, and it may be very peaceful, after you come out of your sessions, if some of those thoughts start to manifest because we haven't looked with an analytical mind and recognized the faults of those mental states, that maybe it's easier to fall under their influence when you're not in the meditation session. Yeah, this is just my thought. Yeah, but Tsongkhapa was very. He really hammered in this, this opposition to the Hoshang approach, the approach of one Chinese abbot who said, good thoughts, bad thoughts, release them all. It's like good clouds, dark clouds, white clouds, they're all clouds. Don't pay any attention, get rid of them all. And Tsongkhapa was very much opposed to that view. Yeah, because he said you needed to know how to think properly and how to differentiate between constructive thoughts and destructive thoughts, and how to use the constructive thoughts to aid yourself in the practice of the Dharma instead of just getting rid of them. Yeah. And when you realize, you think about it, so much of the method side of the path involves virtuous thoughts. Generosity, ethical conduct, fortitude, all these things. You have to have virtuous thoughts to create merit. Compassion and love we cultivate them depending on thoughts. So to learn to distinguish between, virtuous and non-virtuous thoughts, and to really learn to be completely convinced of why the non-virtuous thoughts are wrong consciousnesses. And to learn to be really convinced why the grasping at true existence is a wrong consciousness. Because you can't realize emptiness without being convinced that the grasping is a wrong consciousness. Because unless you're convinced that it is, you're not going to know what object, you're not going to understand what object it apprehends and grasps and clings to, and so you're not going to be able to prove that that object doesn't exist. Okay? So this thing of really, why is grasping at inherent existence a wrong consciousness? And to really understand that quite deeply, that what it's apprehending does not exist at all. That doesn't mean nothing exists. It means true existence doesn't exist, or inherent existence doesn't exist. But we have to know, what is that inherent, if inherent existence existed, what would it be like in order to prove that it doesn't exist and that it can't exist. Yeah? So all this requires, some kind of thought and some kind of analytical abilities. It isn't just sitting there going, empty, empty, emptiness, emptiness. Yeah, get rid of that thought, get rid of this thought. Okay. So there's a lot of ways that we can stumble and take unnecessary detours. There's a whole lot of ways we can take unnecessary detours and even think that we're doing the thing the right way. Yeah. So it's quite delicate, and that's why listening to teachings is so important, and having the guidance of those who know is so important. Mm-hmm. If you want to get from here to Bodh Gaya, you got to know somebody who knows the way. Maitri might be very good intentioned, but she's not going to be able to direct you to Bodh Gaya. She'll just direct you to her food container. Bodhgaya, Bodhgaya, yes, here it is. Open it and all the bliss comes tumbling out in the form of little kitty kibbles. Okay, so we'll start off with one question from last week. Somebody said that I spoke of in one meditation session, that you go from the meditative equipoise, which is neither of the path of seeing, to the uninterrupted path, and then the liberated path of the path of meditation. Okay, so the question is about the meditative equipoise, which is neither. Does it include meditative equipoise on emptiness? What's the answer?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Is that what the meditator is doing then on the path of seeing when the progression to the path of meditation occurs? Yes. Okay. Because remember, on the path of seeing, you had the uninterrupted path and the liberated path. Then the meditative, and those were both category branches. Your big thing was meditative equipoise, which means meditative equipoise on emptiness. Okay? So you had the uninterrupted path, the liberated path, and then the path of seeing, the meditative equipoise of the path of seeing, which was neither. That one, which is neither, is all the other times that bodhisattva is meditating on emptiness that aren't either the uninterrupted path or the liberated path. Okay, so since the uninterrupted path and the liberated path happen at the beginning of the path of seeing, and you're practicing on the path of seeing for a long time, but you're meditating on emptiness that whole time, all those other meditations on emptiness are the meditative equipoise of the path of seeing that's neither uninterrupted path or liberated path. Okay, so when you've accumulated enough merit that your realization of emptiness is strong enough, then when you sit down, you're still in the path of seeing, meditative equipoise on emptiness, which is neither, but your merit is strong enough so your perception of emptiness attains the power to eliminate the first set of obstacles on the path of meditation. So then, in one meditative session, that meditation, that equipoise, which is neither on path of seeing, goes into the meditative equipoise on the path of meditation that's the uninterrupted path. Okay? And it has banished the afflictions, but not to the extent that they could never return. And then in that same meditation session, it gets to the point where then it's really banished that particular level of afflictions to the point where they can never return. And that becomes the first liberated path of the path of meditation. And then you have many more liberated paths of the path of meditation, because you have 10, you have from Bhumi 2 to Bhumi 10. Yeah. On there. Okay? Okay, so that's how it goes. Okay. That's good. You guys kind of understood it. You remembered something from Salam. Yay! Okay, so there's a few interesting points that I wanted to talk about. Somebody a while ago asked about intuition. Yeah, remember that? And so I came across a part where somebody had asked Kanzur Jampa Tekshok about that too. So I thought I would share what he said. Okay, so, of course, intuition's kind of a vague word. It's like maybe we think we know what's going to happen. Is that kind of how you would define intuition? You think you know what's going to happen. So he said, if you think my Lama will come today, and he does, that's a correct belief. It's not a prime cognizer because you aren't 100% sure he's coming. Okay, so if you have the intuition your Lama's coming, it's a correct belief. isn't it? Because you're not sure. When you have an intuition, are you sure or not? Mm-mm. No, you're not sure. Are you sure when you have an intuition?
Well, there's levels of it. Sometimes it's really strong, and then sometimes it's more wavery.
But sometimes when you're really sure, does it always turn out that way?
No.
So sometimes you may have a strong intuition that is actually turns out to be a wrong consciousness. You don't know it at the time, you only learn afterwards it's a long one. And so similarly, you might have even a weak intuition that turns out to be correct. It's a correct assumption, but you don't know that until later. At the time you're having it, you don't know if it's correct or incorrect because the future hasn't happened yet. Okay. So, so tuition in the sense of knowing something without having a reason. That's kind of what intuition is, something. Sometimes it's like you know something, but you don't really have a reason.
That's what the definition is.
Yeah, so that's one of the types of correct assumption, isn't it? One type of correct assumption is thinking something, but you don't have a reason for it. Okay, so that kind of intuition would be that kind of thing. Now, some of your intuition, you might think so-and-so's coming today, and then they don't. And that could be, that's a wrong consciousness, okay? If you think today it will rain, you aren't sure. You haven't realized the object. Yeah, have you?
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, you can't because it hasn't happened yet. It's a future object. Yeah, and so if you're not a Buddha, or somebody with, really strong, valid clairvoyance, you just have a hunch or a feeling or an intuition. You haven't realized the object. Okay, if you know a subject because of having studied it in the past, we say that's an intuitive understanding. Okay, but that's kind of a slightly different meaning because that's due to having very strong imprints about that topic from the past. So there's some kind of cause going on. Yeah, you have an intuitive understanding because you've heard that, you've practiced it, you thought about it in previous lives. So it kind of arises in your mind in a very comfortable and comparatively easy way. So that would be an intuitive understanding. Okay? Then, we might have a conception. And another interesting point. Let's say a conception apprehending a vase. That conception does not apprehend the conceptual appearance of vase. Okay? If I'm having a conceptual appearance of Khensa Rinpoche, my mind, the apprehended object is not the conceptual appearance of Khensa Rinpoche. It's Khensa Rinpoche. The conceptual appearance of him is the appearing object. Okay? So the conception doesn't have the conceptual appearance of...
Apprehending the conception.
No, it doesn't have the conceptual appearance of Khensa Rinpoche as Khensa Rinpoche. But the conceptual appearance of Khensa Rinpoche appears to the conception apprehending him as him. Okay? So to that conception, when you're thinking about somebody, that conceptual appearance appears to you to be like the person. You don't apprehend that conceptual appearance to be the person. Okay, so the mistake is with the appearing object, not with the apprehended object. Because the appearing object is a conceptual appearance, and that's appearing to be like whatever it is you're thinking about. Okay? So that's why we say that a conception is mistaken with respect to its appearing object, but it's not necessarily erroneous with respect to its apprehended object, because you're thinking about Khensa Rinpoche, and Khensa Rinpoche exists, and he does look like that, and he does act like that. Okay? Where we run into erroneous in terms of the apprehended object is if you're thinking, if you think an inherently existent Khensa Rinpoche exists, or if you think Khensa Rinpoche doesn't know what he's talking about, there's something like that, then there you're erroneous with respect to the apprehended object. So that's a wrong consciousness. Okay, so a mind can be mistaken with respect to the appearing object and still be a correct consciousness. It correctly knows its apprehended object. Okay? So that's important when we get into the whole thing about grasping at true existence, because when we grasp at true existence, when true existence, put it this way, there's the appearance of true existence and there's the grasping at true existence. The appearance of true existence, occurs even to our sense consciousnesses, because everything appears to us to be truly existent. That's a mistaken appearance, because the consciousness is mistaken with respect to the appearing object, because things are appearing truly existent. But our sense consciousnesses don't grasp them to be truly existent. So we don't say that those sense consciousnesses grasp to existence or are wrong consciousnesses in that respect. There's still correct consciousnesses, because you can know a lamp and you can know steps and you can know a carpet, even though in terms of how they're appearing to your mind, they're appearing in a mistaken fashion. Okay. When we actively grasp at true existence, that's done with the mental consciousness, not with the sense consciousnesses. And that's what is meant when we say that we're assenting to the appearance of true existence. We believe in it. We're apprehending, grasping that things, that's really truly existent. And that is a wrong consciousness, because it's erroneous with respect to its apprehended object, because it's thinking, it's holding, it's grasping that object to be truly existent. Not just as the object appearing truly existent, but the mind is holding it that way. Okay, so this gets to be quite an important point when you, it'll come up in Jeffrey's teachings. I'm sure about that. Okay, then there was another little bit here. Okay, well, we have to talk about doubt first before we can talk about that other little bit. So we're going to talk about doubt. Okay, so.
There's a question.
Oh, yeah?
What do you think are the causes of intuitions, which are correct beliefs without reason?
What do I think of the causes of intuition, which are correct beliefs without reason? I don't know. I have no idea.
A sort of a karmic.
There might be some kind of karma or some kind of imprint. Yeah, must be something like that.
You know how animals sometimes, like mother cats or something, know when it's going to have a storm or something like this?
Yeah, I'm sure, like when animals know something. I think they must be, there's something that you're perceiving, you know. And so similarly, I don't know, there might be something that we're perceiving that we're not aware of, or it might just be some kind of imprint or something on the mind.
It seems like you could possibly be aware of physical changes, but not be aware of the actual sense of them. Does that make sense? Like maybe the example I'm thinking is if a storm is coming or something, and there's like a slight change in air pressure.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily know that you're really aware of it, and you say you have an intuition.
Okay. Oh, so what you're saying is it could be an inattentive cognition. There's a change in air pressure. Yeah. Or your muscles start aching, but you're not thinking, oh, my muscles are aching, but you're aware that something feels different. So that's an inattentive mind. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so there could be a lot of things like that. Yeah. And then we think, oh, it's just coming magically into my mind, but, you know, there may be something like that. And, you know, sometimes when you know somebody really well, then you can kind of predict habits. So you can kind of say, you know, we say, I have a feeling somebody's going to do that. Of course, you know, we could be wrong, but, you know, we may just be aware of that person's habits.
I have the experience of trying to, like when you try to diagnose, try to evaluate in that way, such things. Talking to my dad about this, and that was his life. And because I got to a place where I realized there is like intuition that happens, and I learned to listen to that. And what I learned from talking to him about that is it's based on a lot, but I think what happens is you haven't thought through all the things that it's based on. You have experience, you have a lot of learning, you have a lot of this and that, but so you have the correct assumer, but you don't have all the reasons like to the forefront. And so I think some of them might be attentive, some of them you might just not have thought through yet.
Right.
Or recall them.
Or recall them.
An explicit reason, but you have.
But you can then go work it out a lot of times.
Yeah. So I mean, in the situation, let's say, of medical diagnosis, because of past experience, you may have a feeling for what's going on. You call that an intuition. Right off the top of your head, you can't say why. But if you were more aware, then you might be aware, well, I've had this kind of experience in the past where these and such symptoms were together and this happened.
I always had the feeling like you were painting a picture by listening to the history, so that at some point there's enough on the canvas that you can see what it is.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
That's how I would describe it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. When you take the history of a patient, at a certain point you have enough information where, like painting on a canvas.
It might change over time. It's kind of like all of a sudden you've kind of categorized it in your mind, and it leads you to what needs to happen.
Yeah. And so that could be right, or once in a while it could be wrong too. Yeah. So you keep perfecting it. Yeah. Very true.
Is this how meditation progresses also?
What do you mean?
It seems that at some point I don't necessarily contemplate aspects of the teachings, but have some sense of them because of having past experience with them. So I don't need to go over them at that time. And the force of the past experience carries through.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell myself that I'm safe so I can meditate. Sometimes I do, but other times there's just a sense of knowing that I should feel safe or can feel safe.
Yeah.
Sort of non-verbal, non-attentive, but also somehow a force carrying through because of past experience.
Yep. Yeah. some kind of past experience. Especially if you're familiar with a certain meditation, that feeling of that meditation very easily arises in your mind without your having to go through point 1, point 2, point 3, and so on. Or like you were saying, when you sit down to meditate, you need a feeling of safety, but you may just sit down and feel safe, but without having any kind of reason. But if you thought about it, it's like, well, I'm here in this place with a bunch of nice people, and so why not?
Or I've been to Dharma centers that aren't necessarily in the best neighborhood, but the inside is such that I just get the sense that I'm safe without going through, I don't know, that I'm not attentive to it, but maybe the lighting or something like that.
Right. Yeah, different things can give you different feelings about stuff. Okay, so we're on to doubt. So doubt is a knower which, by its own power, has qualms in two directions. That's the definition of doubt. So when it says by its own power, what that indicates is that this doubt that we're talking about here is the mental factor of doubt. Okay? Because when we have a consciousness with doubt, there's the primary consciousness, there's the mental factor of doubt, there's the 5 omnipresent mental factors. Okay? All of those have qualms in two directions. Okay? But they don't have qualms in two directions due to their own power, because they're not the mental factor of doubt. Okay? So the mental factor of doubt is what makes you say, well, maybe this or maybe that. Okay? That mental factor of doubt doesn't occur alone. It's always in the entourage of a mental consciousness. And that mental consciousness also has other mental factors, not just doubt, but for example, the 5 omnipresent mental factors. So all of those, that primary consciousness, the mental factor, feeling, discrimination, all those other things, also have qualms in two directions. But they aren't the definition of doubt, because they have qualms in due directions due to the power of the mental factor of doubt. But only the mental factor of doubt has qualms in two directions due to its own power. Okay? So if it's a mental factor that has qualms in two directions, it's not necessarily doubt. It could be the discrimination that is together with that whole mental consciousness. Okay?
So it's kind of like the doubt is what powers the other.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's the same like with a mind of anger. Yeah, you have the mental factor of anger, but it doesn't occur by itself. There's the mental consciousness, plus there's all these other mental factors. But they all, become non-virtuous through the power of the anger. Yeah, not through their own power. Okay? Okay. So doubt is a mental factor. If it's a mind wavering between 2 points, it's not necessarily doubt. For example, a primary mind that shares, it was called 5 similarities. There's 5 ways that a mind and a mental fact and its accompanying mental factor are similar. So it shares those 5, that mental primary mind shares those 5 ways in common with doubt. Okay, so for example, tea is sweet, but it's not sweet by its own power. It's sweet by the power of sugar. Okay, so the primary mind isn't doubt by its own power. It's doubt by the power of having the mental factor of doubt in its entourage. Okay? Okay, so people can waver between 2 points, but the people aren't doubt. because they aren't a cognizer. So then our definition is a knower which by its own power. So it has to be a cognizer of some sort. We're not talking about a person being doubt, even though a person wavers between 2 points. Okay? Okay, so we did that. So then there's 3 classifications of doubt. So there's doubt which is in accord with the fact or the meaning. So for example, doubt that thinks that sound is impermanent. There's doubt which is not in accord with the fact or the meaning. For example, doubt thinking sound is permanent. And then there's doubt which is equal to both sides. You know, it's nonpartisan doubt. And so that's doubt thinking that sound is either permanent or impermanent. Like, let's cover all my bases here. I don't know which one it is, but so it's one of the two. Okay. So there's a common base between doubt and wrong consciousness. For example, doubt thinking the aggregates are permanent. Yeah. So it's doubt because it's not sure if the aggregates are permanent or impermanent, but it's a wrong consciousness because it's thinking that they are permanent. Okay, so there's a common denominator between wrong consciousness and doubt. Okay, it's a wrong consciousness because it enters into its object perversely. In Tibetan it's called a loktok. A wrong conceiver, a wrong conception. Okay, so a wrong conceiver, a loktok, and a conceptual wrong consciousness are synonymous. When we get to wrong consciousness, there's conceptual wrong consciousnesses and non-conceptual wrong consciousnesses. Okay, so let's think of some other examples of these 3 kinds of doubt.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
This first kind of doubt is according with the fact the meaning would not have the common base between doubt and wrong consciousness.
Right.
I'm guessing. Okay.
Right. Only that last kind of, the doubt that isn't in accord with the meaning, that's the only one that has a common locus with wrong consciousness. Okay, so what are some other examples of doubts that you have? Just give me one, okay? None of you have any doubt?
I ever understand logic.
Huh?
Doubt that I will ever understand logic.
Okay, so a doubt that I'll ever understand Lorik. Okay, so which of the 3 kind of doubts is that?
Somebody heard the wrong.
Yeah, tending.
Okay, so that's the one that is a doubt tending towards the incorrect side. Why?
Because she's capable.
Because she's capable. Why is she capable?
Because she studies and she's bright and she has a lot of determination and sincere interest in studying.
Okay, she's capable, she's bright, she has sincere interest in studying, and
Consciousness is empty of inherent existence.
yeah, the mind's empty of inherent existence, and the afflictions are adventitious. They haven't entered into the nature of the mind. Yeah, the mind by itself has the capacity to perceive. It's just something that is blocking it from perceiving at this time, and so that blockage can be removed. So has your doubt changed? Has it gone maybe to doubt towards the equal, or doubt towards the correct, or maybe even a correct assumption? Maybe equal. We got to keep nudging it. Yeah. We got to get it at least to a correct assumption.
Or that triggers the doubt. Is the doubt really empty of inherent existence? The mind really empty of inherent existence.
Yeah?
Someone who doubts he will be enlightened in this lifetime.
Okay, so you doubt that you'll be enlightened in this lifetime. Which of the 3 kinds of doubt is that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends who's having it, doesn't it? Yeah. If a tenth Bhumi Bodhisattva has that doubt, then what is it?
It's tended
Tending
toward
towards
the
fact.
No.
No, if a 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva thinks I doubt I'll become enlightened in this life,
Not
not
tending
tending
towards
towards-
the
that's not tending towards the fact. Yeah, if somebody who has no realizations now has that idea, what is it?
That's tending towards the fact.
Maybe tending towards the fact. Yeah. Yeah. There's a few people who have no realizations now, but because of some special karma they created during previous lives, maybe something will happen in this life. But His Holiness says those people are very, very few and far between. We always like to hope we're one of them. Don't we? I'm the one. You know, they always talk about spontaneous realizations. They're very few and far between, but maybe I'm one of them. Yeah.
Intuition about it.
Yeah, right. I have an intuition about that.
Just for reasons.
Yeah, for absolutely no reason. Except my own arrogance or maybe my own insecurity. Either of those could be feeding it. What are some other examples of doubts that you have?
Chinrezi Hall will be finished this year.
Are those the kind of doubts that are important in this context here? Okay, what kind of doubts are important here?
ones that have to do with your practice.
Yeah, ones that have to do with your practice. So what are some doubts that you have that have to do with your practice?
I sometimes doubt this whole idea about bodhicitta to be able to benefit everybody without exception.
Okay, so sometimes you doubt that with bodhicitta you'll be able to benefit everybody without exception. Is that the doubt? Did I understand it? No.
That I can generate bodhicitta because my mind can't imagine including everybody without exception.
Oh, okay. So you doubt that generating bodhicitta is possible because you can't imagine including everybody without exception in that wish to be a benefit. Okay, so what kind of the three kinds of doubt is that?
First thing is not tending towards the fact.
I mean, if you can't imagine that you'll ever get there, then you're correct. I mean, without the ability to imagine it, how?
Yeah, but she's thinking I don't have the capability to get there.
Without being able to imagine it, you don't.
You don't have the capability?
Not without at least the conception that it's possible.
You don't have the capability? You mean a toddler has to have the idea, I'm capable of crawling before they can crawl?
No, but they can't have the idea that there's no possibility of it.
There must be some love in housing, some love.
Yeah.
Willingness.
Yeah, but she is she's not doubting that she's able to. She's doubting that it's possible at all for anybody.
I get into that point?
Yeah, for anybody to do it because she as one individual cannot imagine including everybody in it. Okay, so is that correct or not, that it's impossible to generate bodhicitta because she as one individual cannot imagine including everybody in it?
It's not tending towards the wrong.
That's tending towards the wrong one. Okay. And even if it were you thinking, I can't generate bodhicitta because I can't imagine including everybody, what's the difference between that and her thinking she can't learn low rig? They're the same, aren't they? Yeah. So just because you can't imagine it doesn't mean that you lack that capability. The capability's there, but you don't know how to use it. Yeah. It's like, there might be a light switch in a room, So there's the potential to turn on the light, but you don't know where the switch is. It doesn't mean that there's no potential. Okay? So then why is that a doubt tending towards the wrong, the incorrect conclusion?
Because there are other examples. There are examples of human beings or beings who have accomplished it.
Okay, so there are examples of beings who are able to include everybody without exception.
And we can make an inference depending on authoritative testimony.
Yeah, we can make an inference depending on authoritative testimony.
Says the Buddha potential. Says Buddha potential.
Yeah, because you have the Buddha potential. Again, because the mind has all these capabilities, but there's obstacles to them right now. So just because there's an obstacle to something doesn't mean that that thing cannot be realized. You know? It's like you don't have a plane ticket to Delhi. That doesn't mean going to Delhi is impossible. Going to Delhi is possible, you just don't have the plane ticket yet. Okay. So what do you think about your doubt?
It's interesting, it comes and goes. I mean, some of the time I go, oh God, there's so many beings that have done this. Just because you can't do it now, that doesn't mean you're not going to.
Exactly. Just because you can't do it now doesn't mean that you're not going to. So that's the thing I was talking about at the beginning, of accepting where we're at, but knowing we can change in the future. Yeah. When you get into this mind state that thinks I cannot change in the future, that's a wrong consciousness. Yeah. Thinking I can't do it now, therefore I'm never going to be able to. That's not correct.
So if we apply this reasoning and logic to things that are like habitual, especially things that feels like we came into this world kind of thinking that, then that's the powerful force that can turn the mind.
Yeah, right. We may have lots and lots of habitual patterns and habitual ways of conceiving things, habitual stories we tell ourselves, habitual emotional reactions. Yeah, just because something's habitual doesn't mean it has to continue to exist in the future. Yeah, if those habits are based on wrong consciousnesses, then as soon as you generate a correct consciousness and get rid of that wrong consciousness, then that habitual tendency can't continue. Okay, so we may have a habitual tendency towards anger, or a habitual tendency towards laziness, or a habitual tendency towards what?
Judgmental mind.
Judgmental mind, yeah. But that doesn't mean that these things are always going to be there, because they're all based on grasping a true existence, and the object of that grasping doesn't exist, so the true existence is a wrong consciousness. So when you generate the mind that sees the emptiness of true existence, that wisdom overpowers the ignorance, and then the ignorance, which is the sustenance for all those other wrong mental states, it collapses, so those wrong mental states collapse too. Okay?
Can you use the reasoning of dependent arising? Can you use the reasoning of dependent arising for that? Like
Yeah.
that because every phenomenon is dependent arising, then it's based on creating the causes, getting the parts together, and conceptualizing.
Right. Yeah. And because things are dependent arising, they aren't inherently existent. So the wisdom that realizes non-inherent existence it's possible to have that wisdom, and that wisdom can cut off the afflictions. And then also, the whole process of gaining that wisdom is a dependent arising.
We can also take something that Venerable Jane may start with the wrong view, go to the doubt, go to the correct assumption, inference, and then run it through that way through logic.
Yeah.
So then doubt is classified as an affliction, right?
The doubt that is inclined towards the wrong one is classified as an affliction. Because that's got to be eliminated. You can't realize emptiness and still have doubt about whether things are truly existent or not. Okay? So when you have the direct perception of emptiness, your doubt is finished. Yeah, that's eliminated at the path of seeing.
I was kind of thinking recently that that we identify with the affliction so strongly. So I'm trying to think that, or actually what we're identifying with there, in some sense, is this particular kind of doubt that tends towards the wrong conclusion, because that is the affliction that's in the mind. And when I was thinking, why bother, why try? That's the mind that thinks you can't change.
Right.
And so that mind that's locked in that little set of words, attitude, is the mental factor of doubt tending towards the wrong conclusion, which is an affliction.
Yeah.
And if you identify with that, then it's like what Venerable John Pell says, well, in that moment you can't change, because that's who you are.
Yeah, well, you can change, but you prevent yourself from changing because you think that's who you are.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Mind.
Okay. Yeah, so when we identify with the afflictions and think this, when we think what is a wrong consciousness, such as judgmental mind or anger or greed or any of these things, when we think that something that is a wrong consciousness is a correct consciousness, yeah, then that belief is itself a wrong consciousness.
Right.
Yeah, and wrong consciousnesses can be eliminated.
Yeah, you have to refute them.
Yeah, you have to refute them. So when you get in this mood of, well, why bother, it's all so difficult. Yeah.
Possible.
Yeah, or it's not possible. But if you look, when we get in a mood and we say it's not possible, are we really believing it's not possible, or are we really believing it's too difficult for us? Are you believing that it's not possible for anybody? Or are you believing you can see other people do it? It's possible for the Buddha. So you're not saying it's not possible. You're just saying it's not possible for me. Or I can't do it. Yeah. Because I'm different from everybody else. I'm special. I'm the only one who doesn't have the Buddha nature. All these other living beings have the Buddha nature, but me.
That's where I think the mind that goes there has completely identified with it.
Right. We've completely identified with the affliction, and we think this is who I am. This thought is a correct consciousness. It cannot be eliminated because it's correct. Yeah. Yeah, I'm the only one without the Buddha nature. That is a correct consciousness. But then when you think about it, if you say that, if that's a correct consciousness, then that means the Buddha was lying. Because the Buddha said all sentient beings have Buddha nature. So then you are presented with a consequence. Yeah, this is why this is the prasangika mode. They present you with an undesirable consequence. You think it's impossible for you to get enlightened. Okay, then that means the Buddha was lying. Yeah, that means the Buddha did not tell the truth when he said all sentient beings have Buddha nature. Now that contradicts your belief somewhere, doesn't it? Yeah. So when that contradicts your belief, somewhere you've said, yeah, I believe in equality and democracy. Everybody has the Buddha nature. then, then you can't say everybody but me. So then you have to go back and really think, well, is my thought that it's impossible for me to attain enlightenment, is that a correct thought? Or is that a wrong consciousness?
The texture of the mind is usually not so good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another way you can know that something's wrong with that thought, because the whole texture and flavor of your mind is really blah. Yeah. When we have correct consciousnesses, our mind isn't, blah.
Right. So I was wondering why that mind that's tending to either one isn't an affliction, but I can hear now that actually is an opening. The doubt that can go either way.
Right.
If you've gone all the way down the pike that I can't do this, and there's a moment of maybe I could, maybe I can't.
Right. So from that viewpoint, the one that is equal is beneficial when you compare it to the other one. But from the point of view that you have some confidence you can practice and attain enlightenment, and then you begin to doubt yourself, then that equal one is going backwards.
So it's not really an affliction. Well, it could be either one.
It depends if you're coming from this direction or that direction. Yeah, but that middle one is going to have to be eliminated at some point or another before you can really go on.
The fence.
Yeah, you got to get off the fence before you can go on. Yeah, remember that skit you did about sitting on the fence? Yeah, we do skits from time to time. So they did a skit, they were all turkeys sitting on the fence, like people who didn't know whether they should get ordained or not ordain. Should we ordain? Should we not ordain? Should we ordain? Should we not ordain? So like turkeys sitting on the fence, but it's 2 days before Thanksgiving. So sitting on the fence as a turkey 2 days before Thanksgiving is not so smart. Yeah. So, okay. So think of some examples of the doubts that you have this week. This is your homework time. Think of some examples of doubts, and then really, do some background research here, and investigation and analysis, and see, what are your doubts based on? And do they have some kind of valid reasoning behind them? And see if you can give yourself a consequence, a prasanga, yeah, that feels uncomfortable, that's going to get you to let go of your wrong view. Okay, and so we can talk about this during the week.